After years of feeling like the outsider in my own family, I decided to fake being unconscious during a hospital stay, just to finally hear the unfiltered truth about what my parents and siblings actually think of me when they believe I can't hear a word. It began 3 days after my motorcycle crash. The physician remarked on my fortunate survival: fractured ribs, a concussion, a broken leg. Yet, my recovery progressed unexpectedly swiftly. By the 3rd day, I was fully lucid, but an instinct compelled me to keep my eyes shut when I detected approaching footsteps. My elder brother, Camden, entered first. "Good," he murmured to someone behind him. My mother's voice followed. "Perhaps this will finally teach her a lesson." My heart seized. "What lesson?" "Riding that death trap at 25, Mother continued. "She's always been so reckless. Remember when she abandoned law school to become a paramedic?" Camden interjected, which, honestly, was probably sensible. She never possessed the intellect for legal studies anyway. I lay there, utterly motionless, as my family dissected my life choices as if I were already deceased. "The financial strain is the worst," Mother sighed. "Do you comprehend the cost of this hospital stay? And she carries that basic insurance from her ambulance employment. We could always just—" Camden's voice lowered. "Don't even utter it," Mother hissed. "I'm merely suggesting, if she doesn't regain consciousness, the life insurance would." Mother's tone sharpened. "Someone might overhear you." My blood congealed. They were discussing my life insurance while I lay right there. "Look, all I'm implying is, perhaps this is a sign," Camden persisted. "She never truly integrated into this family. Always playing the hero, always making us appear inferior with her blue-collar occupation. Remember when she brought that homeless man to Christmas dinner?" Mother asked, her voice dripping with disdain. "Or when she testified against Uncle Richard at his trial?" Camden added. "Uncle Richard, the family secret we were forbidden to mention. The reason I had severed ties with most of my relatives 2 years prior. She decimated this family," Mother stated quietly. "Lies. They labeled my testimony about what he had done to me as lies." The room fell silent. I distinguished the rustle of fabric, as if someone was leaning closer to my bed. "You know what I believe?" Camden whispered. "I think we need to have a serious discussion with her physician about her prognosis." "What kind of discussion?" Mother's voice was barely audible. "The kind where we address quality of life. Brain injuries can be unpredictable. Sometimes, it's more compassionate to let someone depart." "Camden, consider it," Mother urged. "She's never going to change. She'll awaken and revert to embarrassing us, to her pitiful job, her bleeding heart causes, her vindictive crusade against our family. She cost us everything." Mother's voice gained intensity. "The country club membership, the charity board positions. Do you realize how humiliating it was when the Weatherbys requested my resignation? Because of her fabrications about Richard," Camden concurred. "One troubled girl's fantasy destroyed a good man's reputation." Fantasy. 15 years of torment was a fantasy to them. "If she doesn't awaken," Camden continued slowly, "the insurance funds would resolve numerous issues. We could settle the house, perhaps embark on that European journey you've desired." "How much is the policy worth?" Mother inquired. 200,000, plus there might be a settlement from the motorcycle company. "Faulty brakes, recall." My stomach churned. The brakes were not faulty. I had encountered black ice. "We'd have to be cautious," Mother stated. "Ensure everything appears natural, of course." A grief-stricken family making the difficult decision to allow their daughter to pass peacefully. "When should we consult the doctor?" "Soon, before she exhibits further signs of improvement." I heard footsteps drawing nearer to my bed again. "Observe her," Camden said, his voice devoid of warmth. 25 years old, and this is her accomplishment. No spouse, no genuine career, no wealth. She's a disappointment. I harbored such aspirations for her," Mother sighed. "Law school, a proper marriage, grandchildren. Instead, she chose to squander it all for what? To rescue strangers who likely don't even appreciate it." "She was always self-centered," Mother agreed. "Even as a child. Always creating drama. Always seeking attention." Attention. That's what they called my pleas for help when Uncle Richard was harming me. "The funeral would actually enhance our image," Camden mused. "Tragic young woman taken too soon. People adore a martyred hero narrative. We could establish a scholarship," Mother added, warming to the notion. "Show how much we supported her career choice." "Perfect. Transform her into a symbol, while finally being rid of the actual person." Their footsteps moved towards the door. "I should go speak with that doctor," Mother said. "What's his name?" "Martinez." "Good idea. And I'll contact the insurance company, just to comprehend the procedure. Remember, if anyone inquires, we were here praying for her recovery," Camden concluded. "I know." The door clicked shut. I lay in the darkness, processing what I had just overheard. My family wasn't merely disappointed in me. They were actively hoping for my demise, and they were plotting to profit from it. I compelled myself to breathe normally, to maintain a steady heart rate. The monitors beside me beeped rhythmically, marking time while I endeavored to comprehend the nature of the people I was related to. That night, I replayed every conversation from my youth, every family gathering, every moment I believed demonstrated affection. How many of those smiles had been feigned? How many expressions of pride had been performances for outsiders? I recalled the night I had finally confided in my parents about Uncle Richard. I was 22, home from college for Christmas break. I had spent 4 years in therapy, cultivating the courage to speak. When I finally uttered the words, recounting what he had done to me from age 7 to 18, their initial reaction wasn't concern for me. It was concern for the family's reputation. "Are you certain you recall this accurately?" Mother had asked. "You were so young. Children sometimes misinterpret adult affection," Father had added. They had spent that entire conversation attempting to persuade me I was mistaken, that Uncle Richard was a good man who had been nothing but kind to me. When I insisted, when I presented the journal I had kept documenting every incident, they had accused me of possessing an overactive imagination. "You were always dramatic," Mother had said, inventing stories to gain attention. But I hadn't fabricated it. And 2 years later, when Uncle Richard was apprehended for abusing my cousin Isla, they could no longer deny it. The physical evidence was irrefutable. The medical reports were conclusive. Yet, somehow, even then, I remained the antagonist in their narrative. The following morning brought more visitors. My cousin Bridget arrived with her husband Trevor, both clad in expensive attire that proclaimed success and superiority. "Any change?" Bridget inquired, settling into the chair beside my bed as if attending a social event. "None," Mother replied, her voice heavy with manufactured sorrow. "The doctors indicate it could go either way. Such a tragedy," Trevor stated, though his tone suggested he was discussing the weather. "She was so young. Has anyone visited her apartment?" Bridget asked, and I could discern the calculation in her voice. "I mean, someone should inspect her belongings, ensure nothing is stolen." My apartment, the one-bedroom dwelling I had worked 3 jobs to afford, adorned with second-hand furnishings and artwork from local artists I had befriended. It wasn't much, but it was mine. "Camden has her keys," Mother said. "He's managing all that." "Good thinking," Trevor remarked. "Does she possess any valuables? Electronics? Jewelry? Savings accounts?" The audacity was breathtaking. They were cataloging my possessions while I lay supposedly unconscious, 3 feet away. "Not much." Camden's voice joined the conversation as he entered the room. "Her motorcycle was the most valuable item she owned, and that's totaled." "What about her savings?" Bridget pressed. "Investment accounts? Retirement funds?" "She squandered everything on that absurd motorcycle," Mother said with disgust, "and donating money to every sob story that crossed her path." They were referring to my contributions to the women's shelter, the homeless veteran I had helped get back on his feet, the immigrant family whose medical expenses I had covered when their son was struck by a drunk driver. "Remember when she paid for that stranger's cancer treatment?" Bridget laughed, a sound devoid of warmth. "Thousands of dollars to someone she had met precisely once. Or when she gave her entire Christmas bonus to that animal rescue," Camden added, shaking his head as if my generosity were a mental illness. "At least she possessed good life insurance," Trevor said, redirecting the conversation to finances. "That demonstrates some foresight. The EMT union mandated it," Camden explained, though I doubt she understood its implications for her beneficiaries. "Who are the beneficiaries?" Bridget asked, attempting to sound casual, but failing miserably. "Mother and I are listed as co-beneficiaries," Camden stated. "She established it when she commenced the job, back when she still considered us family. Before I had testified against Uncle Richard. Before I had learned that truth was less significant to them than reputation." "That's fortunate," Trevor said, the word striking me like a physical blow. "At least something positive can emerge from this tragedy." Fortunate. My potential demise was fortunate to them. They remained for another hour, their conversation oscillating between feigned concern for my condition and very real interest in my financial standing. They discussed funeral arrangements, memorial services, and how to portray my life story in the most favorable light possible for themselves. Not once did anyone mention missing me. No one shared a cherished memory. No one expressed hope for my recovery. They spoke of me as if I were already dead, as if I were a problem finally being resolved. When they eventually departed, I heard Mother whisper to Camden in the hallway, "Have you spoken to Dr. Martinez yet?" "This afternoon," he replied. "I'm going to inquire about her realistic prognosis and our options." "Our options? Not my options. Theirs." That afternoon, Dr. Martinez entered with Camden, and I immediately perceived the tension between them. I had liked Dr. Martinez during my conscious interactions. He seemed genuine, capable, and compassionate. I hoped he wouldn't be swayed by whatever manipulation Camden was contriving. "Doctor, I need to ask some difficult questions," Camden began, his voice heavy with a feigned emotion that made my skin crawl. "Of course, how can I assist you? My sister has always been troubled. Mental health issues, risky behavior, poor decision-making. Is it possible that even if she awakens, she might not be the same person?" I felt nauseous. Camden was laying the groundwork to question my mental competency, constructing a narrative that would justify whatever they were planning. "Brain injuries can certainly affect personality and cognitive function," Dr. Martinez said carefully, "but your sister's scans appear very promising. I anticipate a full recovery. But you cannot be certain? Medicine isn't about certainties, Mr. Thornfield. It's about probabilities. And the probability is that your sister will achieve a complete recovery. What if we're not comfortable with those odds?" Camden asked, and the casualness of his remark chilled me to the bone. There was a prolonged pause. I could almost hear Dr. Martinez processing the implications of the question. I am not sure I comprehend what you are asking, he said slowly. I'm inquiring about our options as her family, if we believe that the quality of life she might have isn't acceptable. Another pause. This one felt perilous. Mr. Thornfield, are you asking about withdrawing life support? I'm asking about all our options. Your sister isn't on life support. She's breathing independently, her vitals are stable, and her brain function is normal. There's nothing to withdraw. But if her condition deteriorated, there's no indication that it will. In fact, I expect her to regain consciousness within the next day or two. I could feel Camden's frustration radiating across the room like heat. Doctor, you don't understand. My sister has a history of making poor choices, reckless behavior. She caused significant trauma to our family with false accusations against a relative. If she awakens, she might persist down that destructive path. False accusations. 15 years of documented abuse were false accusations. Mr. Thornfield, my role is to treat medical conditions, not to make judgments about patients' life choices. Your sister is recovering well from her injuries. That's all that matters to me. Even if she's a danger to herself and others? Has she been declared mentally incompetent by a court? No, but then she possesses the same rights as any adult patient. I'm going to check on her now. I'll ask you to step outside. Camden's footsteps receded reluctantly, and I could hear his anger in the heavy impact of his shoes on the floor. Dr. Martinez approached my bed, and I felt safer with him present. Your vitals are excellent, he said, making notes on his chart. Heart rate, blood pressure, brain activity. Everything appears normal for someone in your condition. He leaned closer and lowered his voice to barely above a whisper. I know you can hear me. Your brother's questions were inappropriate, and I want you to know that no one will make medical decisions for you without your consent. When you're ready to awaken, simply open your eyes. My heart rate spiked on the monitor, betraying my consciousness. That's what I thought, he said quietly. Take your time. I'll be here when you're ready. He departed, and I lay there, processing what had just transpired. Dr. Martinez knew I was conscious. He was protecting me. But for how long? And what would Camden do when he realized his scheme wasn't working? That evening brought a procession of family members I hadn't encountered since Uncle Richard's trial. They had all severed contact with me after the conviction, opting to side with an abuser rather than admit their failure to safeguard a child. My Aunt Dolores arrived first, her designer purse clutched like a weapon, her countenance arranged in an expression of theatrical grief. Such a tragedy, she sighed dramatically, taking the chair nearest my bed. She possessed so much potential. Wasted potential, Uncle Paul corrected as he joined her. But perhaps this is God's way of granting her peace. Peace from what? Mother asked, though I suspected she already knew the answer. From her demons, from the lies she told, from the guilt of destroying our family. They believed I felt guilty. They believed I was tormented by speaking the truth about Uncle Richard. Richard always claimed she had been troubled since childhood. Dolores continued, her voice gaining strength as she warmed to her narrative. Inventing stories, seeking attention. He tried to help her, you know. Spent so much time with her, attempting to be a positive influence. Positive influence. That's what they called grooming. The trial nearly killed him, Paul added, his voice heavy with manufactured sorrow. An innocent man ruined by a disturbed girl's fantasies. He's faring better now, though, Dolores said, brightening slightly. Prison has afforded him time to reflect, to forgive her for what she did to him. Forgive me for what he did to me. He writes to us sometimes, Paul said. Never bitter, never angry, just sad that she couldn't accept his affection and guidance. His affection. 15 years of abuse was affection to them. Perhaps if she doesn't awaken, it's for the best, Paul mused, his voice adopting a philosophical tone. She can't inflict any more harm, and Richard could finally find peace, Dolores agreed. Poor man has suffered enough. They remained for 2 hours, taking turns sharing their revisionist history of my relationship with Uncle Richard. In their rendition, he was a misunderstood saint who attempted to assist a troubled child. I was a vindictive liar who ruined an innocent man out of spite. The most unsettling aspect was how convinced they seemed of their own narrative. It wasn't deliberate deception. They had genuinely rewritten history in their minds to evade confronting their own failure to protect me. When they finally left, I heard Paul tell Camden in the hallway, if you require character witnesses regarding her mental state, we're pleased to assist. Character witnesses. They were constructing a case against my competency. The next day brought my father. I hadn't seen him since the trial, where he had sat in the back row with his arms crossed, stone-faced throughout my testimony. When the guilty verdict was read, he had departed without acknowledging me. Now he sat beside my bed, and for a moment, just a moment, I hoped he might be different from the others. Perhaps time had granted him perspective. Perhaps he had realized what Uncle Richard had truly done to me. I don't know if you can hear me, he said quietly, his voice rough with what sounded like genuine emotion, but I need to say something. My heart monitor betrayed my attention, beeping slightly faster. Your mother believes I should let you go. Camden thinks it would be mercy. Perhaps they're right. The hope died in my chest like a snuffed candle. You tore this family apart, he continued, his voice gaining strength. My brother is incarcerated because of you. My wife cannot show her face at church. My son has to explain to his colleagues why his sister destroyed our reputation. But I understand why you did it. You were always envious of Richard. He was successful, respected, accomplished, everything you were not. So you decided to bring him down. Jealous of my abuser. The man who had stolen my childhood was someone I was supposedly envious of. The worst part is that people believed you. A court believed you. But I know my brother. He's a good man who made one mistake. A mistake. Not mistakes. Not a pattern of abuse spanning over a decade. One mistake. He trusted you. Father continued. Tried to be a father figure when you needed guidance. And you repaid his kindness by ruining his life. Father figure. The irony was suffocating. If you awaken, nothing changes. You will still be the same vindictive, attention-seeking girl who destroyed our family for your 5 minutes of fame in court. 5 minutes of fame. 4 days of testimony about 15 years of abuse was fame-seeking to him. Perhaps it's better if you don't awaken, he said, standing to leave. Perhaps everyone would be happier. He paused at the door, then returned to my bedside. I've already signed the documents Camden prepared. If your condition deteriorates, we won't sustain you artificially. It's what's best for everyone. Papers. They prepared legal documents to ensure my death. I should despise you for what you did to Richard, he said, his voice dropping to a whisper. But you're still my daughter. So I'll just hope you find peace. After he left, I lay there, attempting to process the profoundness of their betrayal. My own father, the man who was supposed to protect me, had chosen my abuser over me. Not only did he refuse to believe what Uncle Richard had done, he was actively facilitating my death. The realization struck me like a physical blow. I was utterly alone. Every person who was supposed to love me unconditionally had conditions, and I had failed to meet them by refusing to remain silent about my abuse. That night, a new voice entered my room. Female, professional, with the crisp confidence of someone accustomed to handling delicate situations. Mrs. Thornfield, I'm attorney Patricia Walsh. You inquired about your daughter's situation. An attorney. They had hired legal counsel to help them kill me. Yes, Mother replied, settling into the visitor's chair. We need to understand our options regarding our daughter's care. I've reviewed the medical records you provided. Your daughter's condition is stable, correct? For now, but brain injuries are unpredictable. The doctors say there could be complications. That was a lie. Dr. Martinez had said I was recovering well. And you mentioned concerns about her mental competency? She's made increasingly erratic decisions over the past few years, Mother said, warming to her narrative. Abandoned law school to take a low-paying job, alienated the entire family with false accusations against her uncle. False accusations? She claimed he abused her as a child. The court believed her lies, and now an innocent man is in prison. I see. And you're concerned that if she recovers, she might continue making poor decisions. We're concerned she might be a danger to herself and others. She's always been impulsive, reckless. This motorcycle accident is just the latest example. Well, if she regains consciousness, you could petition for guardianship based on mental incompetency. With the right documentation, you could make her medical and financial decisions. What kind of documentation would we require? Psychiatric evaluations, testimony from family members about her erratic behavior, evidence of poor judgment. The more comprehensive the case, the better your chances. And if she doesn't regain consciousness, then the medical power of attorney you've established would permit you to make end-of-life decisions on her behalf. Medical power of attorney. They had granted themselves the legal right to kill me while I was unconscious and couldn't contest it. How swiftly could we proceed? Camden's voice joined the conversation as he entered the room. If she awakens, we could file a petition within days. The court would order an evaluation, and if she's found incompetent, you'd be appointed as her guardians. And if she doesn't awaken, that's a decision for you and her doctors. Some families opt to maintain life support indefinitely. Others feel it's more humane to permit natural death. They spent another hour discussing legal strategies, financial implications, and how to present their case for my incompetency. Attorney Walsh explained how to document my erratic behavior, which family members would make the most effective witnesses, and what kind of psychiatric evaluation would support their assertions. When they finished, I comprehended the full scope of their plan. If I awakened, they would have me declared incompetent and control every aspect of my life. If I didn't awaken, they would let me die and collect the insurance money. Either way, they eliminated the problem I represented. But they had made one crucial error. They assumed I was helpless, that I had no agency in my own fate. They were about to learn otherwise. The next morning, Dr. Martinez returned alone for his rounds. As soon as he entered the room, I could sense his tension. I know you're awake, he said quietly, checking to ensure the door was closed. And I know what your family is planning. We need to talk. I opened my eyes slowly, blinking in the fluorescent light that suddenly seemed too bright. How long have you known? I whispered, my voice hoarse from days of silence. Since yesterday. Your heart rate spikes every time they utter something disturbing. Your brain scans show normal activity patterns. You're physically capable of consciousness. I struggled to sit up, my body stiff and weak from days of lying motionless. They're trying to kill me, I said, the words feeling surreal even as I spoke them. I know. And legally, they might be able to do it. They filed paperwork establishing medical power of attorney. How is that possible? I never granted them that authority. They claimed you were incapacitated and had no advance directives. Without anyone to contest it, the court granted their emergency petition. But I'm conscious now. Yes, but they could argue that your brain injury has affected your judgment. With the right psychiatric evaluation and family testimony, they could have you declared incompetent. So what are my options? Dr. Martinez pulled a chair close to my bed, his expression grave. Limited, but not non-existent. Tell me about this uncle they mentioned, the one in prison. So I recounted everything about Uncle Richard. Moving in with us when I was 7 after his messy divorce left him temporarily homeless. How my parents welcomed him with open arms, grateful for the assistance with childcare while they worked long hours building their careers. About how his help quickly transformed into something much darker. It started as games, I said, the words feeling like broken glass in my throat. Special games that were our secret. He said I was mature for my age, that I could handle grown-up activities other children couldn't. Dr. Martinez listened without judgment, occasionally taking notes. By the time I was 10, the games had escalated. He convinced me it was normal, that all uncles did this with their nieces. When I grew uncomfortable, he'd remind me how much my parents depended on him, how devastated they'd be if I caused problems. Did you ever attempt to tell anyone? Once, when I was 12, I tried to tell my mom. She was getting ready for work, rushing around the kitchen, and I said that Uncle Richard made me uncomfortable. What did she say? She said I was being dramatic, that Uncle Richard was family, that he loved me and would never harm me. She said I should be grateful to have such a caring uncle. Dr. Martinez shook his head in disgust. The abuse continued until I departed for college at 18. Even then, he'd find ways to corner me during holiday visits. It wasn't until I was 22 and in therapy that I understood what had truly transpired. What compelled you to finally report it? My cousin Isla. She was 7, the same age I was when it began. I noticed him paying her the same kind of special attention. I couldn't allow it to happen to another child. So you went to the police? First, I tried to warn my family. I thought if I explained what he'd done to me, they'd protect Isla. But they accused me of being jealous, vindictive, attention-seeking. They said I was fabricating stories to harm Uncle Richard because I'd always resented his success. That must have been devastating. It was. But I couldn't let Isla suffer what I had suffered. So I went to the police alone. And they believed you. Eventually, the detective was experienced with sexual abuse cases. She knew what to look for, what questions to ask. When they examined Isla, they discovered evidence that confirmed my worst fears. He was already abusing her. Yes, for months. And there were others. Girls from his neighborhood, his ex-wife's daughter from her first marriage. The investigation uncovered a pattern extending back 20 years. Dr. Martinez was quiet for a long moment, processing the information. Your family still doesn't believe you? They believe what's convenient. Admitting he's guilty would mean admitting they failed to protect me. It's easier to believe I'm lying. What do you wish to do now? I want to vanish. I want them to believe I died. That's complicated. And illegal. More illegal than conspiracy to commit murder? Point taken. But faking a death involves falsifying medical records, insurance fraud, potential federal charges. What if we don't fake it? What if we just let them make their choice? Dr. Martinez raised an eyebrow. I don't follow. They want to withdraw life support, right? What if we give them the opportunity? What if I have a medical emergency that necessitates life support, and then they make the decision to let me die? You're not on life support. But I could be, temporarily. A complication that requires intubation. Then, when they choose to let me die, we document everything. That's incredibly risky. Less risky than allowing them to actually kill me. Dr. Martinez studied my chart, contemplating deeply. There might be another way, he said slowly, but it would demand perfect timing, absolute trust, and significant risk for both of us. What kind of way? Medical records can be interpreted creatively. If you were to experience a sudden decline, necessitate emergency intervention, and then pass away despite our best efforts, well, death certificates are filed based on medical judgment. You'd fake my death. I'd document a tragic outcome following complications from traumatic brain injury, which technically wouldn't be entirely false. You did have a brain injury. And then you'd require a new identity, a new life, and the capacity to remain hidden indefinitely. The plan seemed impossible, too intricate, too perilous. But the alternative was allowing my family to either kill me or control me for the remainder of my life. Let's do it, I said. Are you certain? Once you're legally deceased, there's no turning back. You'd forfeit everything. Your career, your friends, your entire identity. I've already lost my family. Everything else can be replaced. What about your job, your colleagues? They'll remember me as someone who died too young. That's preferable to living as someone who was never truly alive. Dr. Martinez spent the next hour outlining the specifics. He would document a sudden deterioration in my condition, necessitating emergency life support. My family would be summoned to make the decision about continuing care. When they chose to let me die, He would document my passing and arrange for my body to be transferred to a specific funeral home with connections to witness protection services. This will terminate my career if we're apprehended, he warned. The medical board would revoke my license. I could face criminal charges. Why are you willing to risk it? Because I've witnessed what families like yours do to survivors. Because I took an oath to do no harm, and allowing them to kill you would violate that oath. And because sometimes the system fails people who deserve better. What do you require from me? Complete trust. When the moment arrives, you'll need to cease breathing independently. You'll need to allow the machines to indicate cardiac arrest while remaining conscious enough to hear what they say. How long will I need to hold my breath? Not long. Perhaps 30 seconds. But it must be convincing. What if something goes wrong? Then we improvise. But I'll be monitoring everything. I won't permit anything to befall you. 2 days later, Dr. Martinez contacted my family with urgent news. I had taken a sudden turn for the worse. Brain swelling had dramatically increased, necessitating emergency intubation to protect my airway. They needed to arrive immediately. When they appeared, I was connected to a ventilator, heavily sedated according to my chart, but actually fully conscious. Dr. Martinez had coached me extensively on the procedure, how to remain perfectly still, how to let the machine breathe for me, how to remain unresponsive to stimulation. What happened? Mother asked, and I could hear the carefully controlled excitement in her voice. The brain swelling increased suddenly overnight, Dr. Martinez explained gravely. We had to intubate to protect her airway. She's in a medically induced coma now. What's the prognosis? Camden asked, attempting to sound concerned but failing to conceal his anticipation. Guarded. The increased pressure has affected vital brain structures. Even if we can reduce the swelling, there may be permanent damage. What kind of damage? Mother pressed. Cognitive impairment, personality changes, loss of motor function. She might never be the same person she was. I could practically hear their relief. What are our options? Camden asked. We can continue aggressive treatment and hope the swelling responds to medication, or... Dr. Martinez paused dramatically. Or what? Mother prompted eagerly. Given her prognosis and the likelihood of severe impairment, some families choose to withdraw life support and allow natural death to occur. Is that what you'd recommend? Camden asked. I cannot make that decision for you. I can only provide information about her likely outcomes and respect whatever choice you make as her family. They asked to speak privately. Through my closed eyelids, I could sense them huddling together near the window, whispering urgent consultations about my fate. Doctor, Mother said finally, returning to my bedside. We've made our decision. And that is, we want to withdraw life support. It's what she would desire. She always asserted she wouldn't wish to live if she couldn't be independent. I had never said any such thing, but I wasn't surprised they would invent a conversation that justified their choice. She wouldn't want to be a burden, Camden added. This is the merciful course of action. Merciful. Murdering me was merciful. Are you certain? Dr. Martinez asked. This decision is irreversible. We're certain, Camden said firmly. When can we proceed? I'll need to complete some paperwork, notify the ethics committee, and allow time for any family members who wish to say goodbye. Tomorrow morning, we can commence the process. That night, Dr. Martinez came to check on me after the evening shift change. Are you prepared for this? He whispered, checking to ensure no one was in the hallway. I squeezed his hand, the first voluntary movement I had made in days. Tomorrow, when they withdraw the ventilator, you'll need to cease breathing independently for about 30 seconds. I'll document cardiac arrest, then begin resuscitation efforts that will fail. From there, you'll be transferred to the morgue and then to our contact at the funeral home. What about my records here? They'll indicate that you died from complications following withdrawal of life support. Cause of death will be listed as natural brain death following traumatic injury. And if they desire an autopsy, they won't. Your family has already indicated they want immediate cremation with minimal ceremony. Of course they did. The faster I vanished, the sooner they could collect the insurance money and move on with their lives. One more thing, Dr. Martinez said. I've contacted someone who specializes in assisting abuse survivors disappear. She'll be waiting at the funeral home to commence the process of creating your new identity. What's her name? Agent Patricia Wolf, FBI. She's been tracking your uncle's case and knows about your family's reaction to your testimony. The FBI was involved. This was larger than just my family's greed. It was part of a broader investigation into how abuse survivors were silenced by their families. The next morning, my entire extended family gathered for my demise. Aunts, uncles, cousins, people who hadn't spoken to me in years suddenly appeared to witness my final moments. They arranged themselves around my bed like mourners at a wake, their faces carefully composed in expressions of grief that didn't reach their eyes. Dr. Martinez explained the procedure with professional gravity. When life support was withdrawn, my body would either resume natural breathing or cardiovascular function would cease. There was no way to predict which would happen. Before we begin, Mother announced, we'd like to say our goodbyes. One by one, they approached my bed with their hollow words of farewell. We love you. Rest in peace. You'll finally have the peace you've been seeking. Uncle Paul leaned close and whispered, so only I could hear. Perhaps now Richard can finally forgive you. Aunt Dolores squeezed my hand and said, "We know you're sorry for what you did to our family." My father kissed my forehead and murmured, "I hope you find whatever you were looking for." Camden was last. He gripped my hand and said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "We're sorry it had to end this way, but we know this is what you'd want, to be free from the pain you've been carrying." What I'd want. They were killing me for my own good. "Are you ready to proceed?" Dr. Martinez asked. "We're ready," Mother said without hesitation. Dr. Martinez began the process of withdrawing life support. First, he discontinued the 4 medications that were supposedly keeping me sedated. Then he removed the feeding tube. Finally, he began preparing to extubate me. "Once I remove the breathing tube, we'll know quickly whether she can breathe on her own," he explained. "And if she can't," Camden asked, "then we'll make her as comfortable as possible while nature takes its course." The breathing tube was removed. This was my moment. I forced myself to remain completely still, to not draw a single breath, despite every instinct screaming at me to inhale. "She's not breathing on her own," Dr. Martinez announced, watching the monitors that were displaying the predetermined patterns we had arranged around me. I heard the subtle sounds of relief disguised as grief. Quiet sighs, shuffling feet, whispered conversations about how peaceful I appeared. "Her heart is dropping." Dr. Martinez played his role perfectly. "Is she in pain?" Mother asked, though her voice held no genuine concern. "No, she's completely unconscious. This is peaceful." "How long will it take?" Camden asked. "Not long now. Her heart rate is becoming irregular." I lay there, holding my breath while counting seconds in my head. 30 seconds felt like 30 years, but I forced myself to remain motionless. "I'm losing cardiac rhythm," Dr. Martinez said. "I'm going to call it." He went through the official procedure, noting the time of death, documenting the cause, and explaining next steps to my family. "We'd like to arrange cremation as quickly as possible," Camden said immediately. She wouldn't desire a large funeral. She was always private about these matters. Private. They wanted me cremated quickly, so there would be no chance of discovery. "I understand," Dr. Martinez said. "I'll have her body transferred to Morrison Funeral Home. They can handle all the arrangements discreetly." Morrison Funeral Home, the facility Dr. Martinez had arranged to facilitate my disappearance. For the next hour, I lay perfectly still while my family discussed funeral logistics around my corpse. They planned a small memorial service, chose the cheapest cremation package, and drafted a brief obituary that focused more on their grief than my life. "The life insurance company will require a death certificate," Camden mentioned to Dr. Martinez. "I'll have that filed within 24 hours, he replied professionally. When they finally left to begin making arrangements, Dr. Martinez waited another hour before approaching my bed. "They're gone," he whispered. "You can breathe now." I gasped, filling my lungs with air that tasted like freedom and terror in equal measure. "How do you feel?" "Like a ghost," I said, my voice strained from the effort of staying silent. "How does this work now?" "In about an hour, the funeral home will dispatch a hearse. You'll be transferred in a body bag to their facility, where you'll meet Agent Wolf and commence the process of becoming someone new." "What about you? Won't they investigate when they realize the death certificate was falsified?" "The elegance of this plan is that technically, I never falsified anything. You did cease breathing. Your heart did stop. And you were pronounced dead based on the observable evidence. If questions arise later, I'll state there was a communication error about the timing of your recovery. That seems like a flimsy defense. It's superior to the alternative. And Agent Wolf assures me that your family's actions are already under federal investigation. Once that becomes public, any questions about your death will be overshadowed by the criminal charges they'll be facing. They're truly going to be arrested? Insurance fraud? Conspiracy to commit murder? Abuse of medical power of attorney? The FBI has been building a case since they filed that insurance claim, before you were even declared dead. An hour later, I was wheeled out of the hospital in a body bag, loaded into a hearse, and transported to Morrison Funeral Home. The irony was not lost on me. I was being reborn in a place designed for endings. At the funeral home, I was transferred to a secure room where I met Agent Patricia Wolf. She was younger than I had anticipated, with kind eyes and a firm handshake that immediately put me at ease. "Dr. Martinez contacted us about your situation," she explained. "We've been investigating your family's activities since they filed the insurance claim. They filed it before I was actually dead." Camden submitted the paperwork and supporting documentation the same day they made the decision to withdraw life support. That's insurance fraud, conspiracy, and attempted murder. What happens now? Now we construct a case while keeping you safe. Your family believes you're deceased, which grants us time to gather evidence and prepare for prosecution. Agent Wolf explained that I would be placed in a form of federal witness protection while they completed their investigation. I would receive a new identity, complete with a social security number, birth certificate, and medical records that documented my recovery from a different accident in a different state. What about my life here? My job? My friends? They'll mourn your loss and remember you fondly. It's not ideal, but it's safer than the alternative. For the next 6 months, I resided in a safe house in Colorado, collaborating with federal prosecutors to build the case against my family. I testified before grand juries, provided detailed accounts of their conversations and plans, and helped establish the timeline of their conspiracy. The FBI had also been recording their phone calls and monitoring their financial activities. Camden had been researching the insurance claim process weeks before my accident. Mother had been consulting with financial advisors about investing a large sum of money. They had even met with travel agents about that European vacation they had mentioned. They had been planning to profit from my death before I was even injured. The case garnered national media attention when the arrests were made. Family plots daughter's death for insurance money. Abuse survivor outsmarts murderous relatives. The woman who had to die to live. Camden was sentenced to 18 years for conspiracy to commit murder and insurance fraud. Mother received 15 years. The other family members who participated received sentences ranging from 5 to 10 years, depending on their level of involvement. Uncle Richard's parole was denied again, with my case cited as evidence of his continued danger to family members and the ongoing impact of his crimes. Dr. Martinez faced a medical board investigation, but was ultimately cleared of all charges. The board ruled that his actions were justified given the credible threat to patient safety, and he was commended for his courage in protecting a vulnerable patient. 2 years after my death, I testified at Uncle Richard's third parole hearing via secure video link. The parole board was presented with evidence of my family's conspiracy and my continued need for federal protection. His parole was denied for another 5 years. I now live under the legal identity of Sage Miller in Oregon, working as a paramedic in a rural county where my skills are desperately needed. I've completed additional training under my new identity and earned certifications that allow me to serve as a flight medic for the region's helicopter rescue service. My new colleagues know me as someone who transferred from Colorado after a difficult divorce. They don't know about my past, but they know me as someone who fights fiercely for patients, especially those who are vulnerable or voiceless. The work is demanding but fulfilling. Every life I save feels like proof that I made the correct choice, that surviving was worth the cost of everything I left behind. Sometimes I receive letters forwarded through the FBI from distant relatives who claim they always suspected something was amiss and wish to reconnect now that the truth has emerged. Some offer apologies for their role in ostracizing me. Others claim they were manipulated by the family members who are now imprisoned. I read these letters carefully, then filed them away unanswered, because the most important lesson I learned during those days in that hospital bed is that family isn't defined by blood or genetics. It's defined by the people who appear when you need them, who believe you when you articulate difficult truths, and who protect you even when it costs them something precious. Dr. Martinez still checks in through secure channels, updating me on his continued work with abuse survivors and the protocols he's developed for identifying families who pose threats to vulnerable patients. Agent Wolf has become a genuine friend, someone who comprehends the complexity of survivor guilt and the ongoing challenge of building a new identity while processing old trauma. My new EMT partner, Quinn, doesn't know about my past, but has become the kind of friend I never had growing up, someone who values honesty, courage, and genuine kindness over social status or family reputation. Last year, I helped rescue a teenage girl who had been sexually abused by her stepfather. When her family tried to pressure her to recant her statement, tried to convince her to keep it in the family to avoid scandal, I ensured she had advocates who believed her. I ensured she had what I'd never had, adults who prioritized her safety over their own comfort. The hardest part of my new life isn't the isolation or the false identity, or even the knowledge that I can never return to who I used to be. It's accepting that the people who were supposed to love me unconditionally were willing to kill me for money and convenience. But from that devastating truth came an unexpected gift, the absolute certainty that I'm stronger than I ever imagined. Strong enough to fake my own death, outsmart people who thought I was helpless, and rebuild my entire existence from nothing. Strong enough to save others. Every emergency call I respond to, every patient I help stabilize, every family I comfort in their worst moments, is proof that sometimes the best revenge against people who try to destroy you is simply refusing to stay destroyed. My family thought they were eliminating a problem. Instead, they created someone truly unstoppable. Someone who learned that the most powerful thing you can do when people want you gone is to choose exactly how you disappear and exactly when you return, even if returning means becoming someone entirely new. The woman they tried to kill is gone forever. But the woman who took her place is everything they never expected, someone with nothing left to lose and everything to fight for. Someone who discovered that sometimes you have to lose everything to find out who you really are. And sometimes, the person you really are is someone worth dying for, someone worth living for, someone worth becoming.